the gate, and there was the barest excuse for a divergence, he made one and vanished. The next morning brought the culminating stroke. She had been expecting it long. It was a formal notice by letter from him that he should not renew his engagement with her for the following Lady Day. Bathsheba actually sat and cried over this letter most bitterly. She was aggrieved and wounded that the possession of hopeless love from Gabriel, which she had grown to regard as her inalienable right for life, should have been withdrawn just at his own pleasure in this way. She was bewildered too by the prospect of having to rely on her own resources again. It seemed to herself that she never could again acquire energy sufficient to go to market, barter, and sell. Since Troy's death, Oak had attended all sales and fairs for her, transacting her business at the same time with his own. What should she do now? Her life was becoming a desolation. So desolate was Bathsheba this evening that, in an absolute hunger for pity and sympathy, and miserable in that she appeared to have outlived the only true friendship she had ever owned, she put on her bonnet and cloak and went down to Oak's house just after sunset, guided on her way by the pale primrose rays of a crescent moon a few days old. A lively firelight shone from the window, but nobody was visible in the room. She tapped nervously, and then thought it doubtful if it were right for a single woman to call upon a bachelor who lived alone, although he was her manager, and she might be supposed to call on business without any real impropriety. Gabriel opened the door, and the moon shone upon his forehead. "Mr. Oak," said Bathsheba faintly. "Yes, I am Mr. Oak," said Gabriel. "Who have I the honour— Oh, how stupid of me, not to know you, mistress." "I shall not be your mistress much longer, shall I, Gabriel?" she said in pathetic tones. "Well, no, I suppose. But come in, ma'am. Oh, and I'll get a light," Oak replied with some awkwardness. "No, not on my account." "It is so seldom that I get a lady visitor that I'm afraid I haven't proper accommodation. Will you sit down, please? Here's a chair, and there's one too. I'm sorry that my chairs all have wood seats and are rather hard, but I was thinking of getting some new ones." Oak placed two or three for her. "They are quite easy enough for me." So down she sat, and down sat he, the fire dancing in their faces and upon the old furniture, all a sheening with long years of handling, that formed Oak's array of household possessions, which sent back a dancing reflection in reply. It was very odd to these two persons, who knew each other passing well, that the mere circumstance of their meeting in a new place and in a new way should make them so awkward and constrained. In the fields or at her house there had never been any embarrassment, but now that Oak had become the entertainer their lives seemed to be moved back again to the days when they were strangers. "You'll think it strange that I have come, but—" "Oh, no, not at all." "But I thought, Gabriel, I have been uneasy in the belief that I have offended you, and that you are going away on that account. It grieved me very much, and I couldn't help coming." "Offended me? As if you could do that, Bathsheba." "Haven't I?" she asked gladly. "But what are you going away for else?" "I am not going to emigrate now, you know. I wasn't aware that you would wish me not to when I told 'ee, or I shouldn't have thought of doing it," he said simply. "I have arranged for Little Weatherbury Farm, and shall have it in my own hands at Lady Day. You know I've had a share in it for some time. Still, that wouldn't prevent my attending to your business as before, hadn't it been that things have been said about us." "What?" said Bathsheba in surprise. "Things said about you and me? What are they?" "I cannot tell you." "'Twould be wiser if you were to, I think. You have played the part of mentor to me many times, and I don't see why you should fear to do it now." "It is nothing that you have done this time. The top and tail of it is this, that I am sniffing about here, and waiting for poor Boldwood's farm, with a thought of getting you some day." "Getting me? What does that mean?" "Marrying of 'ee, in plain British. You asked me to tell, so you mustn't blame me." Bathsheba did not look quite so alarmed as if a cannon had been discharged by her ear, which was what Oak had expected. "Marrying me? I didn't know it was what you meant," she said quietly. "Such a thing as that is too absurd, too soon, to think of by far." "Yes, of course it's too absurd. I don't desire any such thing. I should think that was plain enough by this time. Surely Surely you be the last person in the world I think of marrying. It's too absurd, as you say." "Too soon," were the words I used. "I must beg your pardon for correcting you, but you said too absurd. And so do I." "I beg your pardon too," she returned, with tears in her eyes. "Too soon, that's what I said. But it doesn't matter a bit, not at all. But I only meant too soon. Indeed, I didn't, Mr. Oak, and you must believe me." Gabriel looked her long in the face, but the firelight being faint there was not much to be seen. "Bathsheba," he said tenderly and in surprise, and coming closer, "if I only knew one thing, whether you would allow me to love you and win you and marry you after all, if I only knew that!" "But you never will know," she murmured. "Why?" "Because you never ask." "Oh, oh," said Gabriel, with a low laugh of joyousness. "My own dear—" "You ought not to have sent me that harsh letter this morning," she interrupted. "It shows you didn't care a bit about me, and were ready to desert me like all the rest of them. It was very cruel of you, considering I was the first sweetheart that you ever had, and that you were the first I ever had, and I shall not forget it." "Now, Bathsheba, was ever anybody so provoking?" he said, laughing. "You know it was purely that I, as an unmarried man, carrying on a business for you as a very taking young woman, had a proper hard part to play. More particular that people knew I had a sort of feeling for 'ee, and I fancied, from the way we were mentioned together, that it might injure your good name. Nobody knows the heat and fret I have been caused by it." "And was that all?" "All." "Oh, how glad I am I came!" she exclaimed thankfully, as she rose from her seat. "I have thought so much more of you since I fancied you did not even want to see me again. But I must be going now, or I shall be missed. Why, Gabriel," she said with a slight laugh, as they went to the door, "it seems exactly as if I had come courting you. How dreadful!" "And quite right too," said Oak. "I've danced at your skittish heels, my beautiful Bathsheba, for many a long mile and many a long day, and it is hard to begrudge me this one visit." He accompanied her up the hill, explaining to her the details of his forthcoming tenure on the other farm. They spoke very little of their mutual feeling, pretty phrases and warm expressions being probably unnecessary between such tried friends. Theirs was that substantial affection which arises, if any arises at all, when the two who are thrown together begin first by knowing the rougher sides of each other's character, and not the best till further on, the romance growing up in the interstices of a mass of hard prosaic reality. This good fellowship, a camaraderie, usually occurring through similarity of pursuits, is unfortunately seldom superadded to love between the sexes, because men and women associate not in their labours, but in their pleasures merely. Where, however, happy circumstance permits its development, the compounded feeling proves itself to be the only love which is strong as death, that love which many waters cannot quench, nor the floods drown, besides which the passion usually called by the name is evanescent as steam. End of chapter 56.